This is Uncommonly Remarkable, where we discuss the surprising everyday lives and notable accomplishments of community leaders, entrepreneurs, and everyday folks like you and me. My name is Artis Beatty. I am a doctor of optometry and the chief medical officer for My Eye Doctor OD. Though we will inevitably touch on topics within my area of expertise, the opinions and the conversations held here are separate from my work with My Eye Doctor. Today's guest describes himself as driven, innovative, passionate, empathetic, and resilient. Matt Sheehan founded Excel to reimagine the ways homes are maintained and by doing so, give successful people back time and peace of mind. And by all accounts, Excel is revolutionizing home services by being the only tech-enabled and trusted partner successful people need to manage their home services. From the grit garnered from years of hockey to the lessons learned through something as benign and dangerous as bicycling in traffic, you'll learn about Matt's passion for entrepreneurial success, why the word no can actually empower him, how David versus Goliath scenarios can fuel positive thinking, and much, much more. We have a lot of fun in this episode, and I really get to learn a lot along the way, so I hope you get to take away a few nuggets that you can use day to day as well. Ladies, gentlemen, all you remarkable people, please help me welcome Matt to the show. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Matt, it's great to have you on the show.
It's great to be here. Thanks for having me.
I really appreciate you taking time out. I know we've talked about it a little bit, and between really busy schedules here and there have been some vacations and some things going on. We've not been able to connect. And so when we finally got it on the calendar, I was really, really excited.
Same here, man.
We have a lot to talk about, but the first thing I want to do is maybe start somewhat in the middle, and we'll go backwards and then we'll go a little forwards just to kind of give people perspective, right? So you founded this company called Excel, and it is really unique out there in the marketplace. And so can you talk a little bit about Excel just to get us started?
Happy to. You'll, if you can't see because it's a audio podcast, I'm only wearing Excel and that's all I wear all the time. So when you build a brand from scratch that's different than the status quo, I feel you need to build your brand every day. So Excel is a property management company for primary single family homes.
Okay.
On the higher end of the sort of market. So we focus on homes above $1 million, all the way up to 10 to 20 million. And what I've found over time is that homes are not cared for as they should be. And I've heard this sort of complaint for probably 12 years at this point. And have now either built or bought and lived in 5 homes. I've found that I don't have the care, the energy, the expertise, if you will, to take care of my house the way it should be. Like it's my largest asset, and yet I don't put the time and energy into it. And so I've heard that sort of reverberation over and over, like an echo chamber. And so a few years back, we decided to build what is the only trusted partner that homeowners need to care for, maintain, and upgrade their home.
It's interesting that you say homes are not often cared for the way, because people do want to do and do some maintenance, right? Like almost everyone does in their home. But it's shocking how much stuff really needs to get done over time that you really don't bother with until something goes wrong.
Yeah, you're on it. So people want to. There's a big difference between want to and then on the other column, it's have the ability, have the knowledge, have the time to do. We all want to do certainly a better job of taking care of our largest asset because there's a decent chance we're going to sell it in the future. And so, but I found a big chasm in between the generationally as well, between the skills we all have. It's like, my dad gave me a hammer and an axe when I was 8. And he said 2 things. I'll never swing a hammer again. And, you chop the wood because we heated our house with wood back in the day. Aging myself already, I can tell. And so, but I realized that there's a lot of folks who really want to have a well manicured, cared for house. And they also are realizing that luxury is invisible. It's one of our perspectives is that it's not just how well your lawn looks. It's also the things in your attic, your HVAC. And there's very few HVAC experts, right, in terms of homeowners.
Yeah.
And so I think what we're helping folks see, and others want to know, that not just the look and feel, but the bones of a house are really well taken care of. And that's everything from how often and how good is your pool cleaned, and how often is your house cleaned, things like that. And so we curate a plan for everybody, but we find there's a big chasm in between what people want and what people have the time, energy, and knowledge to do on their own.
And, it's interesting to think about it from a residential standpoint versus, say, a commercial or multifamily perspective, right? Because you think about multifamily or commercial properties, and there is a high level of maintenance that goes on in those buildings, in those properties. Do you think, though, that maintenance level is even adequate versus what you come across for, say, a residential home?
Well, it's interesting. One of the proxies or mentors for us is, property management is not brand new in the world. It's new the way we do it, but it's not new in the world. And so we've seen a lot of industrial, commercial, and we say, well, but it's interesting. The 7 million $1 million homes in this country are not cared for nearly like the office down the street. That's a problem in our minds. And I wonder what would happen if we could give people back peace of mind and maintain their properties better. And so we learn a lot from folks like that. And I do think there's a large opportunity for folks to think about proactively caring for their home, just like they might in their office building.
If you go back and think about how you came upon the concept, like what inspired you when you said, hey, this is an opportunity, something we should really think about?
We were in Chicago in 2012.
Okay.
And I had just left the Redbox business. So little history, I was one of the early folks at Redbox when it was 100 kiosks. We were a 10-person, $4 million business. 6 years after this, we were 2,700 people, 40,000 kiosks, $2 billion in sales. So we had a great growth run. But I left after that growth because I realized that my buddy was the CEO. He's a dear friend of mine. He's one of the advisors today, Greg Kaplan. But I wasn't going to take his job. And I was getting some calls from the outside to go be a CEO. And I said, all right, let me step back and think about what this could be for my career. And I had a leaky faucet. And it took me 2 days of my time. 2 days of my time were effectively erased because I was trying to find a good plumber. In the process of calling neighbors, getting the text threads, going to Angie's List, others, it literally wiped 2 days of my time. My parents taught me that time is your most important currency. So I had that lesson early on. And I really believe that I could have done something better with that. So at the time, what we did is we created, me and the voices in my head, my little team of spirit guides. We said, is there a way that we can put handyman business on a subscription?
Okay.
So this was 12, 13 years ago at this point. And so we started modeling it out. Me and my friends. Right? Yeah. We started modeling it out. And then I said, I got a call from a Prima Water, which is a publicly traded company out of Winston-Salem. We were in Chicago at the time. Okay. And I said, okay, well, I could raise money, put my own money in, start this handyman thing, or I could go basically help turn around a public company. And that was a really, really fun experience. So I went that way. But this concept has never left me. And so fast forward 8 years. Okay. And I look back after I had a good exit at this water company, Prima Water out of Winston-Salem. And I said, well, I could retire now. I hit all the metrics I wanted to do. When I was 30, I said, when I'm 45, I'll do this, this, this. And we beat all those metrics. I said the word retirement to my wife, Tricia, and she just laughed at me. Two things. She said, one, what are you going to do with your time? And two, you can't stay at home all the time. In other words, like, get your booty out of the house. Yes, dear. So I started to scratch this out again, and I looked back, and on average over those 8 years, I had sent myself a text or an email or a scratch of some kind about home services on average every 2 weeks for 8 years. So it was still in my blood. Wow. And I could not, and now I had more experience. I had now lived in 2 different homes since my time in Chicago, and I realized that there's a big gap between what we talked about before, the way people want to care for their properties, the time, energy, and knowledge of doing so. The difference is when we started asking people about handymen, they all came back with the same thing. What about ... What about plumber? What about electrician? What about this? And so what we backed up and we looked at and said, you know what, I think it's a holistic property management company for high-end homes, and it doesn't exist anywhere today. It's certainly not on any scale. And that's the exact kind of journey I want to be on, something that everybody thinks you're crazy and something that has really big upside.
Wow. It's just interesting to hear the journey, right? Because you never know what question you're answering until you ask a bunch of them, right? And people don't know exactly what it is that they're looking for until somebody sometimes provides a solution. And it's just an interesting way to think about people's time, the asset that they're trying to protect, and you having to figure out how not to be idle.
Right. Yeah, absolutely right.
Now, you were in Chicago with Redbox. Where'd you grow up?
Boston.
Okay.
You may hear my
I
accent.
hear it a little bit. Just a little bit.
You take Boston, you put us through Penn State, where I met Tricia. Then you go to Chicago for 8 years, then Winston-Salem. So I get Canadian all the time these days. I'm not sure, but
well, it is a little bit funny because the way you said house earlier sounded almost Canadian, but then you've said a couple of things. I'm like, I don't know, that's not quite Canadian.
Just trying to be mysterious.
But the North thing makes me that makes sense to me because I think I read that you played hockey.
I did,
and that's not something people in the South tend to grow up doing,
right.
And so I figured you had to be from somewhere north. Tell me about the hockey.
So I played a lot of sports growing up. Hockey was my love. I played football, baseball, but hockey was always number one in my mind. I love it for a whole bunch of reasons. I think it's the greatest sport to play. Hits are harder. Speed is faster. and there's so much loyalty for that sport. So I played in college and I played with a lot of kids who were multi-sport high school players, and they all chose hockey. There's something very loyal to the sport. And the amount of sacrifice and time I made, my parents made. There's a lot of 5 a.m. games. It's different because in soccer, usually basketball, football, you need daylight.
Right.
Well, hockey, you just need a cold drink. And if you're crazy enough to get up at 4 a.m. like my parents were and get me on the ice at 5, then you play a lot of hockey growing up. I remember being told, this will share a little bit about me and why I love businesses, that there's a little David and Goliath in me. And we'll get to that. As I was a junior in high school and somebody said, I just don't think you're big enough to play college hockey. Oh, and I can still feel it now. It went up me sideways. Like, don't say no. Do not tell me no. And so I tried to be careful that I don't go chase something just because somebody tells me no. Because my immediate reaction is, watch this. But as long as I'm being authentic in myself and it's something I'm passionate about, hockey was the thing that took me to college. I got cut so I played my freshman year. I got cut.
Okay.
Some great players. Whether I was good enough or not, I'm not really sure, but I wasn't done. So I transferred, ended up going to a better college, and spent 3 years and became captain. So it was a great sort of journey for me in the hockey.
Tell me what you learned in hockey though that has stuck with you, because I've talked to a lot of people who've played a sport at a high level, and whether that be a professional career or high level collegiate, and people tend to pull something away from that experience that they take with them throughout. What was that piece for you from hockey?
I think it's grit. And so when you're 5'6", and everybody you're playing is 6'2", 6'3", it takes a lot to be tough enough to go play at that level. And I had some skills, sort of good IQ, EQ about the sport, but I think it's about grit. And it's about willing to go into a space that you may not have all the innate talents for, but you can work your way into it. And so it's grit plus hard work. I have 3 kids now. We talk about this all the time, which is, I think if you had to correlate one trait with success, it would be hard work. Of course, you need some skills, but I was gifted that, meaning because I was a hard worker, the pressure was on me to do so. And that just gave me this license to say, hey, wherever I am in the world, it's a good chance people are going to be stronger, faster, better, smarter. But I can go lead at a high level because I'll put the work in. And that's meant the difference.
Well, and that goes back to the earlier conversation around making the decision from the move from Redbox to going to help a company before you got to Exhale. I mean, all of those things require a lot of start from scratch and work real hard, and so you can almost feel it in that respect.
Yeah, it's definitely been a flavor for my life. And more than that, it's probably been a guiding force for my life, which is don't be afraid to be authentic and go after the big challenge. Mm-hmm. There's something that gets me very excited about seeing, like at Redbox, seeing Blockbuster basically hold everybody prisoner to a $5 rental. And this sounds silly now, right? But a $5 rental and you can keep it for 5 days. But they always knew the average DVD or VCR back in the day, because now we're getting old and really dating myself, was held on just for 24, 48 hours. And so that was definitely like, hey, we're looking way up a hill at a darling of Wall Street at the time. And we think we can actually do better than them. And we did. Netflix deserves a lot of credit for this.
Yeah.
But when you take the same product and you put it across the street at $1 versus $5, mm-hmm. Trust me, we had a little dent in Blockbuster ourselves, and I'm proud of that. Frankly, that's a little bit of that David and Goliath thing. Like, all right, we can step in the ring.
Well, it was an amazing thought process then, right? Because I remember going to Blockbuster, and you're right, like, and I made the transition. I was in the transition period between VHS and DVD, and I still remember the first DVD that you get, and you're like, oh man, we can see this whole movie, and it's on this little thing, and it looks so much like a CD, and it was really exciting, right? And then that was, I guess, during the time when Netflix was actually mailing the DVDs, and you're getting the return envelopes, and you just pop them in and mm-hmm. pop them out, and it was pretty easy, pretty simple. But then Redbox comes along, and now you've got this machine, and you can just go to the little kiosk, and you can see, the movie, and you can pick the movie and at the grocery store, right?
Where are you going to be anyway?
Yeah.
That was the part of it, was where are people going to be anyway? And, average American goes, or they at least used to go to a grocery store 1.5 to 2 times a week. Okay, well, that's perfect. And you know where they are? They're across the street in our same plaza as Blockbuster.
Yeah.
You're like, oh, this is going to be fun.
Yeah. Wow. So, I don't know exactly how you're going to explain this, but so generally I ask people, tell me something about you that would be surprising, right? And you've got a whole bunch of things, and we're going to talk about a few of them as we go through, but now I understand where the hockey was, and now I understand you and the other sports. But how have you been involved with cars and bikes so much?
Cryptic opening. I appreciate it. So yes, I've been hit by a car on my bike 4 times, twice by the same guy, my neighbor. Yeah, so I didn't give you all of it, so I'll talk to you. So I don't know what it was. I've run a lot in my life, but I've never really, really appreciated or loved to run.
Okay.
And so as I needed to stay in shape, my bike was my tool, if you will. And I was a BMXer as a kid, so I just loved.
Okay, that's fair.
If there was a jump, I'd hit it, and I'm surprised I didn't break more bones. So it was just these odd times where I was riding my bike where I probably shouldn't have been. Most of these are my fault, by the way. Like I never ride my bike on a sidewalk anymore, because I remember that Subaru, when it came out to the side of a parking lot, she tossed me into the street. And so I don't know what it is, a little magnet or a bullseye on my back for me in cars. And I just kept on going. In fact, my buddy just the other night was saying, do you remember when you got hit by the car in Saugus, as we say in Boston, Senna, the Senna of town? And I said, yeah. He said, man, you were so mad. And it wasn't her fault. I said, I know, but she hit me with a car. He said, you got up on your bike and your back wheel was all damaged and the chain was off, but you wanted to prove her wrong. So you got on your bike and you started to pedal and you weren't going anywhere. So I don't know. I don't really know how to explain that, but I've actually loved, and I've done a lot of cycling even since. And there's something very sweet and meditative about being on a bike.
Yeah.
Until the time you run into a Chrysler.
But how did the same guy hit you twice?
He was my neighbor, and I didn't learn. So I can be a little stubborn at sometimes. And I think I've learned to learn faster over time. But when you ride your bike on a sidewalk, you are apt to get hit from the side from somebody coming out of a driveway or a street, right?
Okay.
Gary Mansfield, my neighbor, really great guy. He's a cop. He had a gorgeous gray Trans Am. I went right over the hood twice. And the first time he's like, Matt, are you okay? And the second time he's like, dude, don't drive on the sidewalk. And I picked my bike up and I walked it home and I fixed it. So I don't know what came with that. Maybe I should have just learned my lessons faster. But.
Well, to be fair, in most major metropolitan areas, bikes are not allowed on the sidewalk. Probably that's part of the reason, right?
Yeah, they should call it like the Matt Sheehan clause or something like that. Yeah, it's oh man. And I do love bikes, and those moments just did not shy me away from that. But oh yeah, I got a couple broken bikes.
Now, did you cycle competitively at all?
A little bit, but it was really training for me. And then I've also been a big part of my life has been the Pan Mass Challenge, which is fundraiser for cancer research out of Boston. So Pan Mass across Massachusetts, 200-mile bike ride. It actually, we crossed $1 billion raised this year. It's been around for 40 years. Billy Starr is a guy out of Boston who lost his mom to cancer.
Okay.
And said, I think we can do something about this. He started it with 13 riders. Some people pledged, and it grew and it grew and it grew. I think we raised $72 million this year, 100% of it. Since 40 years ago, 100% of every dollar goes to the charity.
Wow.
It's the most impressive charity I can ever think of, because most they give 20 cents or 25 cents or 30. There's been 100 cents on every dollar raised goes to the charity. And so my bike has been part of me through all this journey. I've ridden it 22 times.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah.
That's amazing. So, so I will try to link the charity in the description.
Perfect. Great.
And so you'll make sure that I have all the right information. And we'll do that.
We'll do. That's great. Thanks for that.
But speaking of charity, though, you're also involved in another nonprofit, right? And I found this just really interesting. So I can't wait for you to help talk about it a little bit. But Pangea Education.
Yes.
So tell me a little bit about that.
So I've done some speaking over time, and Drew Edwards, the founder of Pangea, he was at DePaul at the time, years ago, when I was presenting my perspective on living a good life and how nonprofits and for-profits link.
Okay.
And my larger perspective, try to get a debate in the room, was I believe a lot of the world's issues are going to be solved by entrepreneurs, because sustainability is generally better when you can take $1 in and turn $1.05 out of it. Okay. Right. So if we're thinking about more sustainable organizations, then if you could create profit mechanisms while also serving the world, that's a really great place to be. I did it a little strong because it was a nonprofit class, and we had these good debates.
Sure.
Well, Drew was in that class many years ago. He had since started Pangea. Pangea is this fascinating nonprofit that goes focused on Uganda right now. And they go into the, villages and communities, and they get these almost tribal stories, and then they create books out of them. And it's the way I talk about Pangea is these folks have the way to almost like put their hand in the soil and pull out that lineage and turn that into gorgeous, gorgeous books for kids to read. So our overall sort of purpose is we want 100% literate world by 2050, because the downstream effects of literacy are massive.
Right.
And that would take us 3 podcasts to talk about. But generally speaking, the more of the world that can read and write, the better this world would be. And so, but there's a lot of places in the world that just don't have great access. Mm-hmm. And so Pangea is taking that straight on. And it's a hard challenge from a funding perspective, from a distribution perspective. But their magic, and I tell them this all the time, their magic is they will go into a community and they will ask about stories and ask about the culture. And then in about 3 months, it will be this amazingly illustrated book that goes back to the community to help kids read. We're actually thinking about how to bring that to the U.S. Now, the publishing world in the U.S., I don't know a lot about, but I just love this idea of, like I always say, reaching into the soil and pulling out that weed, that that nugget of a story that a grandfather's told a grandfather's told a grandfather all the way down the road, and then turn that to a book so it has a structure to live on. It's magical in my mind. And so I've been happy to help them think about the business.
Well, that's really interesting because it's being able to go and gather a tribal or communal story is one thing, but the interest level of the children who are now taking part is much, much higher, and they're much more engaged in actually learning because it's something that is somewhat familiar to them, but they have a tie to it.
You got it.
That's amazing.
Yeah, and we see this all the time, right? If you tell me a story about somebody in Indonesia, I will only know so much about that because I'm a fairly empathetic person, but I just haven't been there. I don't truly understand. I think we are all like that. And so to give kids in Uganda, for instance, here, a story about somebody in Detroit, Michigan,
right?
I don't know that really helps, but to sort of create that, it's almost like that circular reference, if you will, in the same community is great. And then the rest of us, I read these books and I just smile because I can learn from these books and they're really well done. So I'm with you. I think how do you turn that back into the community so that it will help kids read and the next generation has a higher literacy rate? The world's just going to be a better place for that.
That's pretty amazing. It is an interesting and good question around how do you bring some of those things here, right? Because we take for granted from an education standpoint. I mean, comparatively, we are a well-educated country, but there are pockets of our country that are not, and so it would be interesting to see how this concept would work in the U.S. With U.S.-based stories.
We have communities. It's a very broad used term, but our communities, on one hand, if you think about the real estate strategy of the 15-minute city, if you've read about that, where cities are being broken down to everything's within 15 minutes, walkable cities, you hear that.
Yeah.
So our sense of community, where some folks say it's lost, and some days I think that is the case. But I also think communities are shrinking in a good way. It's becoming a little bit more, not tribal, but communal in a way, and I think that's great. We have stories in our neighborhoods that we should tell more. So your point is, if we could unlock that in the U.S. and other markets around the world, I would love to read more about how the folks started Raleigh as a city.
Yeah.
I think it would be great. I don't know much about the history because we chose it. We love North Carolina. I wasn't born and raised here. We absolutely love it. But frankly, I don't know enough about our history. And if somebody would come out and say, well, here's how the founders of Raleigh, and they did it in an illustrated book that I could have read my kids when they were 4. Yeah, that model works, to your point.
Yeah, yeah. And it is interesting to think about just from a historical basis. We think about the U.S. and we think about relatively young country, right? There are very interesting pieces and aspects of U.S. culture, however, that only a small segment of our U.S. population actually understand. And when you think about East Coast just in broadly, East Coast U.S., well, I guess East Coast predates technical U.S. There's a lot of things here that are really part of what got us to the point of being able to call ourselves a country, right? And so it would be really interesting to a lot of us, me included, to have some of those local stories and be able to share those with other people. So now I'm kind of team. Let's figure out how to do this.
I love it.
In lots of places, including here.
I love it. Yeah, you think of it. So I grew up in Boston, and so we learned a lot about the Puritans.
Yeah.
Coming over in the Mayflower, and I think everybody heard that, but because it was so close to home, it felt like my my hood, right?
Yeah,
So I think we can do that. And if you think about the way this country grew, and you think about a couple examples, Silicon Valley alone, I mean, it has changed our world in a way and changed our country. Texas, I love a lot of people from Texas, and they're like, it's its own country, right?
Yeah.
But they've hold on to those stories deeply. For sure. And so I think it could be something to do there.
Yeah, Texas is interesting that you bring that up to me, because we have a lot of practices that are in Texas, and anytime you go into a new state or a new geography, there are always things that you learn that are a little different. Patient base is a little different. Practices are a little different. Doctors are a little different. Texas is one of the most unique places in this entire country. And there is a Texas culture that you have to understand, because if you don't understand, you cannot actually grow and do well in Texas. And key to that is the fact that everybody knows all the things, right? So if you grew up in Texas, you know a lot about Texas, and your expectation is that people who are visiting, who are trying to sell you things, who are working, they know those things too. And if they don't, it becomes obvious, right? And so maybe we all should take a little bit of Texas with us too, right? And understand a little bit more.
And you know it when you're in Texas. They're proud of it, and they will tell you the stories. So my dad's a Irish storyteller. He's a poet. He's written 50 books, and he has told so many. Oh yeah, he's amazing. 96 years old today, by the way, and doing great.
Happy birthday, Matt.
Yeah. Thank you. So, I grew up hearing a lot of stories and hearing this sort of legacy lineage thing, hearing about folks from Ireland who came, to levels before him, and Texas folks do that so well. Sometimes we miss that. We forget about that history, and as borders with technology drop a little bit over states, and it's harder. There's no doubt it's harder. Yet it's also, when you think about what has happened in the publishing world, it's easier to publish a book, at least get it out there on the internet. So that's true. As boundaries come down, I wonder if publication's ease can actually help us tell a story across borders.
That's a really good thought. And I never think about that, right? That the internet has done so many things for us, and sometimes we blame the internet for a lot of bad things, but it has made the ability to be able to communicate with one another in an effective way much, much simpler. And there are lots of self-published books that would never really exist in the typical publishing world that now you have access to. Sure. And so maybe I like that thought. I mean, I think it gives us something or some way for the average person to be involved in being able to tell that story.
Totally right.
So when we're thinking about Exhale Now and where you are, tell me a little bit now about how people get involved with Exhale if they're thinking, wow, I really need some help with what I'm doing at home.
Happy to. I love this business, so I will try to trim this down because I could talk about it for 5. We've, as you could tell earlier, we put a lot of thought into why to start it, why to build it, how to build it, and we're very sort of culturally focused, purpose and values focused, and so we sort of get into that. But at the end of the day, when I talk to folks, I ask them a few questions, which is how much do you believe that maintaining your home better will give you peace of mind, more time, and a better asset value down the road? I mean, it's almost 100% people say yes, yes, yes. So then I go to the next question, which is, how good are you at it? And the people who are honest often say, oh, we're not being recorded, right? But I'm not that good at it. And by the way, I don't want to do it because I just don't really understand HVAC, or I really don't understand trees. Sure. I need somebody to help me. And so then I said, the third question is, how much do you like managing all the different trade partners to truly have a house that's maintained well? Meaning on the outside, aesthetically, and then the bones, the luxury is invisible idea. And when you ask folks that question, if they're really being honest, they oftentimes, some folks are, I love it, I'm good at it, I have the time to do it, and no way is anybody going to help me manage my house. Great. Mm-hmm. High five to you, not a fit.
Congratulations.
Seriously, it's great.
Yeah.
Most folks are, I would love more time. I would love my house to be better maintained. And frankly, when I go away, I just worry about my house. And so we've built a business where, it's a single point of contact. You get a home manager. As many, frankly, venture capital firms have told me to make it all tech. This is a people business powered by tech. And that's a little non-consensus in today's world. And I like that, a little David and Goliath there. But I think I understand enough now what our members want. And you get a home manager. You can, for instance, text Brian or Bill, two of our home managers, and they know your home. They've met with you plenty of times. They know your preferences. They know the paint colors. And we can deliver a very curated experience to you based on your house and based on the way you want it. And for that, it's pretty special. I'll tell you, I believe in. Do you know Net Promoter Score?
Yes, very well.
We have used it in 5 businesses in a row now that I've been a part of, and ours is 75.
Impressive.
Yeah. So when you think about, and we have a long way to go, but if we were in my office, I'd show you my whiteboard in an Excel sheet with all the projects, all the small piece of technology, all the delivery mechanisms of how to make it better. But when you get a 75, which is up there in the Apples and the Harley Davidsons and that, then without a lot of technology, because we've done this in a little bit of a cheap entrepreneur way, we're onto something. And when you take the NPS of home services in the country for high-end homes, it's 15. And so if we were 50, by the way, but we did this about 7-8 months ago when we were 48. And I said, ooh, one of my advisors said, it's the comparison.
Yeah.
Horst Schulze, who's the co-founder of the Ritz-Carlton, he's one of our advisors. I've talked to him now for 2 years, every other week. Fascinating guy. Still wears a suit coat every day. It's amazing. He's 82 years old. And he says, you got to be a little bit better than everybody else, but you just have to be a little bit better. He said, Matt, if you're 50 and the world is 15, it's light years. When we showed last week, I talked to him in 75. He says, it's time to go. We got to go grow this thing because it's, you have done something far less than the investment you've wanted to put in consumer experience and technology. But if you're getting that now, look out.
So you said 2 things that we should call out. The first thing is that a people business driven by tech. I think that is instrumental in the way you think about growing businesses. The fact that technology currently exists to answer and do a lot of the things that you could ask or need has really taken away from the people interaction. And although it is mechanically good at what it does, it is not fundamentally what most people are looking for when they want something done.
Right.
And so it is really, really interesting to me that you bring that piece out because, I am a strong introvert. And when there is stuff that I need, interacting with technology allows me to do it without having to put out the energy to work with a person. So I like having that option. But for things where you are really making decisions around home maintenance or car type things, things that are bigger assets important to you, you actually want to be able to see the expression on the face or have a comment made or something that helps you understand that person understands what it is that you're trying to do. And so that's a big deal.
Yeah, we believe in it. I think your business does it as well, right? And so I believe in some cases it's all tech and it should be all tech. And I do believe the labor force will shift accordingly over time. Some folks hate AI today because it's going to take out jobs. It's just going to shift things. And so, but I think this world of bringing service back, one of our members the other day said, Matt, you talk about tech in a couple of your slides and we appreciate it, but you are a trust business. And that word trust is one of our core values. We hear it a lot from our members and that's what people want because when you really want to get time back, access matters a lot. When access matters a lot, it requires trust to be earned. So it's a little formulaic. And so we earn what we have to do up front to make sure that we earn that trust. And that when we have that trust, when somebody is on vacation and we do what we call guardian care, we walk homes every other day for up to 3 weeks a year while you're on vacation. I have some of the most beautiful texts from people on a beach in Italy. And they have said, I've just never been so at peace traveling. Yeah. Because now somebody I trust is in my house telling me that I don't have any broken pipes. And when I heard that the first time, because we sort of made up Guardian Care, like this sounds cool, make it a thing, put it on our poster. And then all of a sudden people started to give us that feedback. We're like, oh yeah, this is big.
Yeah.
And
that means something.
but that the idea of service powered by technology, but service first is that's where we live.
That's, I think we live that way too in our business. And Sue Downs, our CEO, we sat down and had a conversation not too long ago. And one of the things that she mentioned in the podcast was people ask her what she does, and she says, I'm in the people business. Because it really is about making sure people are well taken care of, and the technology becomes an enabler for that. And so it's just nice to hear that piece come from you. And that brings me to thinking about NPS, right? And so you mentioned that the 75 is way up there. And so for people who are not really familiar with NPS, we should talk about that just a little bit, right? Because when your NPS Net Promoter Score is really based on the people who would actually recommend your service to someone else. And that's actually a really big deal, a little different way of thinking about things, right? Because if you're thinking about if people are happy with the service or they're satisfied with what they got, a lot of people are satisfied with what they got, right?
And they'll stay right there.
And they will stay there, right? But the difference when you're thinking about having this huge score is that not only are people satisfied, but they're so content with what they got that they want other people to have it too. So they are willing to recommend that other people have the service. And that's a really big deal. So if you're thinking about industries in general, the level at which people are willing to recommend varies depending on what the industry that you're looking at. However, generally speaking, anything above 50 is outstanding, right? And you can be around that 50 mark and feel pretty good about yourself because you've got a lot of people who really are recommending you. And so it's really a big deal to say, I went from about 48 to 75 in an industry where the average is somewhere around 15. Like, you kind of breeze by it, but it really, really is an important fact, and congratulations, because that means a lot.
It does, and you know it. I can tell by the way you all run your business that it matters to you as well. But it's really interesting to me because I think that it's tied to our P&L. And if I can for 1 second, so referability is fascinating to me because not only is it a satisfaction score, but it's a future predictor of growth. And I think if you are not, somebody once taught me, if you're not growing, you're going to die. From a little aggressive, but you get the point. Is that there is constant, certainly in this day and age, constant change around you. People who are disrupting your space. So if you're flat, you should assume somebody's working on a model that might be better than yours. So I think it's important to constantly grow. So if you have a satisfaction score that also points to referability, that's amazing for growth in a competitive set. The other interesting thing for me, though, is that when you look at some businesses, the sales and marketing costs to keep the engine going are amazing. So I've watched Angie's List a lot.
Okay.
I credit them for digitizing the yellow pages. I mean, they've been around for about 25 years, and hats off to them. But the world has changed, and we don't go after every home. We're generally not a Main Street business, right?
Yeah.
We're going after homes $1 million and above. And what is really important for me is we keep our sales and marketing costs low so that we can focus everything on member service. Angie's List is different. So they have to constantly bring in new clients and new trades, and they're spending a lot of money on the top end of their business to generate the wheel. We do not. And so we can always grow faster. We politely remind our members to refer us a little more because sometimes they might not think it's a big deal. But generally speaking, I think it actually referability, NPS will lead not only to a higher growth, but you will have a lower cost of goods.
Yeah,
lower cost of overall service, and that will drive your profitability.
I think that's a really important point, and one that we also think about in common, right? Because if you're taking really good care of the people that you have, you'll end up with more people to take care of, and you're right, like. Every business has some expense that's related to marketing. I mean, you can't escape it, right? But really healthy businesses are able to generate new customers without necessarily relying solely on that marketing engine. And I think that's the position you really want to be in.
It's a safer business. It's not top heavy. So top heavy businesses need constant funding. And that gets dangerous. But if you have a foundation up business, not top heavy, and it's fueling itself in a little way, Bill, one of our home managers, also does our home reviews. He'll walk a house with a potential new client for about an hour and a half. He's very, very good at it. He called me this was on Friday, and he says, man, busy 48 hours. And I was like, why? He says, I had 5 home reviews. And I said, what's cool? We're not spending anything on marketing. And so we're starting to, I think, reach a little bit of a sort of pace that I'm happy with.
So as you think about where you are today, and it sounds like things are going very well, do you have a future goal or target in mind, something you're shooting for?
So our vision is to be the premier home service company in the country. And so before we had a name of Exhale, we wrote our purpose, our values, and our vision. And the top part of our vision is to be the premier home service company in the country. So we don't quite know what that means. We'll know when we get there. And we've trusted ourselves that it's about quality, it's about service. And of course, there'll be some level of size there that matters. But we haven't really put that on the board. I'm a backcaster, so I think it's the book Range by, I think it's David Epstein. He wrote, and he talks about backcasting. Okay. So there's forecasters who say, here's where I am today, or here's where the business is, and let's take a step forward from where we are today. Backcasters they go way out to the future. They put a sort of pin in the map, and they say, that's what we're going to build. Let's build backwards from that. It sounds the same. It's drastically different. Yeah. And so we backcast a lot. And so when we think about being the premier home service company in the country, and it could be, we've got enough calls now, it could be beyond the country, but we're just in the triangle. So by the way, we're an unprofitable business, startup in the triangle, but we're doing very well. And so I think it's about service. It's about keeping that NPS score. It's about making sure that we deliver service so good in such a unique, authentic way that people will continue to refer us. And when that happens, then partnerships will come into play. And so we've had some folks, larger companies, say, oh, can I offer you to my client base? Some of those are small companies. Some of those are very, very large national companies. And so when that starts to hit, I think we have a unique differentiated model that brings value to the end consumer, we call members, but it also allows other partner channels to add value. And if we can pull that off, I think we'll be in pretty good shape.
That's amazing. So do you ever sit down? Do you ever have any time where you can do just Matt stuff?
Yeah.
Yeah. You meditate?
I do.
Tell me about that. Like, for, I guess, specifically, what led you there, and then how do you fit that into your day-to-day? Because I'm very interested.
I wish I could tell you that I'm a supersonic discipline about it. I go through waves, and I have for about 20 years. But generally speaking, I've found that my engines can go at a high pace. My wife has something in common with my college roommate who says he has 2 speeds. He has faster than anybody around and then sleeping. And so I've had to limit that a little bit as I've grown from, 20, 21-year-old kid who had the word in front of him, and I would run through the office. Yeah. I don't have to run anymore, right? So what I had to find is a way to slow myself down. Okay. And what I realized that I have high capacity, high output. But when that output is not anchored in clarity, then I can go off the rails quickly because I'm moving at a good pace. And I love inertia and I love momentum, and I try to build it wherever we can. So years ago, I realized that I was going a little too fast, not giving myself some perspective. I did 2 really important things. One is I started to read about meditation. And when I started to read about the effects of it, and then I started to try it, sometimes it's 2 minutes. I found myself, I can sit for an hour and perfectly still without movement. And when I do it right, it takes me to a very cool place, like cosmic spiritual stuff we'll get into maybe next time. But but I've done it enough times to know that there's some real truth in me, some clarity I need to stay anchored to my truth, to my authenticity. And when I do that, then I can let my speed run, my energy run, because I'm in my lane. I'm in the right lane for me. And so sometimes it's 2 minutes. I actually did this morning. My dog, by the way, was sitting on my meditation cushion in my office. He was taking a nap. And I was like, oh, come on, man. So I sat in my chair and I closed my eyes and I put my hand on just in my chair and put my hand on my lap and I just sat there for about 2 minutes. And I knew, you're a smart guy and you have a great podcast. And so I want to be somewhat clear so that I can, when you ask questions, I can go through my life and pick a perspective or give a good insight. So yeah, it took 2 minutes and I felt good walking in.
That's amazing. So I saw that you meditate. I've always been curious because my mind moves all the time, and I speak with my parents. So like you, as a child, my dad said, "Here's a hammer.
Okay.
We're going to go do stuff." And so I would follow him around. We'd do stuff. And he's like, "Okay, here's a wrench. We're going to go do stuff." And I would go do stuff with him. And so I've always been on the move. And it's very difficult for me to actually just sit still because in my mind, when I'm sitting still, I'm missing out on doing all the things that could be done. Right. And so my parents are hilarious because they're always like, "Well, you should slow down." And I'm like, "But why? I feel great. I'm going to go do stuff." And so I've always had this thought, maybe I should figure out a way to be able to kind of focus myself and stop for a minute and really kind of understand and be able to sit quietly. And so I have tried several times to work on this, but I am now inspired and I'm going to try to work on it again.
I'll give you 2 tips.
Okay.
2 minutes. So we think about, when we read about meditation experts, we think about, oh, it's an hour in the chair or the cushion, and that scares a lot of people. And you don't need to go that long. 2 minutes. Okay. Find an app, find a song. There's a song on the Gladiator soundtrack called Elegy.
Okay.
E-L-E-G-Y, Elegy or Elegy. I'm not sure how to say that. And it's this really cool song. It takes me to a different place every time. And it's probably 3 minutes.
Okay.
I have earbuds in, or I have it in my office speakers. I sit down, I listen to the song, I'm good for the day. So it's not a lot. So literally when I say 2 minutes, maybe it's 5, but it's just minimize it. So somebody who is thinking about, I'm sacrificing time. You and I are a lot alike like that. And I found that's great. And then all of a sudden it will do this thing and it will just give you clarity. And for somebody like you, and I would say this to any high performance person, if our compass is wrong, even by a degree, and all of our energy is going at the wrong direction, it's not going to be, the world's not going to be worse for it. But imagine if you were truly in your center. And that to me is a reminder of make sure that I'm at my best, not for myself, not from a greedy perspective, just so that I can support others. I can do what I was put here to do to the best of my ability.
Amazing. Do the coloring books help?
Oh, did I tell you about the coloring books?
Yeah.
So, okay, so I'm on a journey myself, right? And my kids laugh at me. My kids are growing now, and they just like to pick on Dad all over the place, but it's okay. So I have found meditation and coloring to be 2 of the meditative things that I do. Now, in one hand, they're the same. It's this ability to just zone everything out. Meditation sometimes works for me well when I can go in, they call it. So I can get beyond the level of the noise. I can settle in. Sometimes that's really hard, right? Because you will find there's so many thoughts. Coloring, I don't feel the need to be too calm because it is action oriented. And we're talking about kids' books sometimes. I mean, it does not have to be Sesame Street coloring books. Now they make adult ones and it's big landscapes and all that. For me, it's just the idea of somewhat staying in the lines, the randomness of colors. It just brings me down to a different level. And it's like I will be on vacation and I'll buy a coloring book or sometimes in my office at home, or everybody will be asleep and I'll be like, oh, it's coloring time. And I literally just made by myself on the back deck. I'll just color. And it is super helpful for me. I can't even explain how or why. I can't tell you that the next day is better.
Yeah.
I just know that I shed the noise. And as I go to sleep that night, I let my true self sort of sit in that pocket for a while. But we need some ways to let all the, shed all the noise off. And coloring is super fun for me.
That's absolutely amazing. I mean, I think we, a lot of us have things that we do that maybe fulfill that piece. Coloring is very interesting because I've not done that in so very long.
Right.
And when I saw that, I thought, oh my gosh, I wonder what it would be like to get a coloring book and actually color, because between crosswords and Wordle, and now Wordle has an archive, so you can go back and play years of Wordle instead of having to wait for one word a day. And so those are the types of things that I kind of do in between. So like I've had this rule when I'm on planes, and I'm on planes frequently, that I'll start a crossword and I want to finish the crossword before we taxi. So I'll do those types of things. And so, but this coloring thing is really got me interested. Like I almost went and got a coloring book to show you my coloring, but I held back because I wanted to talk about it first. But we'll see.
Well, you try it and show it to me. My pictures, I never look or judge myself because it's like randomness in colors, but it's really fun. But you have your tool. And that's what I just invite folks to, whatever that tool is, whatever that mechanism is, to let yourself sink down into who you are. I think we need it weekly, if not daily, but weekly, some period of time that's just you. I know folks who it's cycling. Everything goes away. They don't think about anything when they cycle.
Yeah.
Working out is like that for a lot of folks. And so whatever it is, find sort of that piece that puts you in that pocket and do it. My dad, who's a writer, I remember he was on stage right after Seamus Heaney. Seamus Heaney is Nobel winning prize poet. And, Seamus introduced my dad, which was a really cool thing. We were at Boston College, and I was 6 years old. So my little blue blazer. I was really proud of my dad. And afterwards, I said, "Hey, Dad, tell me something. You make these pauses really long." And he said, "The magic is not in the words; it's in the space in between." And then it was very quiet for a minute. And I was like, oh, he's testing me now. I'm only 6 years old. But a lot of my dad's lessons, they will come back to roost later on. I think my point of meditation and coloring is I think for all of us, if we can find a little space between the speed, between the action, I think that's where our true selves are. Yeah. And I'm going to work on this. And hopefully I can live like my dad has till almost 100. And but I think the space between the words was pretty powerful for me.
That's absolutely incredible. What's next?
We've got a big business on our hand. More important than that, though, I've got an awesome wife. I've got 3 kids. One of the reasons we had trouble booking this was both of our schedules, and I don't miss a game. So my kids are 16, 14, and 12, 2 boys, a girl in the middle. So 10th, 8th, 6th grade. Both at all 3 at Ravenscroft right now, and all 3 playing sports. And a couple things, and this is somewhat long-winded, but I'll get there fast, which is what's next. For me, I'm in this interesting pocket of joy. And I've been thinking about that. I just turned 50 2 weeks ago. So I've been thinking a lot about joy and stress and all that. And joy for me is watching my kids compete, sometimes lose. My daughter yesterday scored a hat trick in soccer. My son in football got blown out in the same day, but they both did good, and they both learned, and they both made mistakes, but they're characters and they're good teammates and all that. So I'm in this interesting pocket where what's next for me is like, what game? We have a game at 1:00 today. And so I love it, and it's a piece of joy. I share that because I think I'm in this interesting pocket of making sure my kids in 2 stats hit me a few years back. With our kids, 92% of our time with them is gone when they're 18, 75 when they're 12.
Wow.
Yeah. So your face where you just say, wow. I feel like time is so precious. And so anyway, I'm trying to leave that. Now, we're going to grow a business. We're going to be multiple markets. I'm going to work my butt off to make sure that I am, and I'll take any red eye possible to get back. So that's what's first and foremost for me, is making sure that in this really interesting period of time, we go build a really special business, which means you hire really well. But I got to protect a bit of that time. Am I going to miss a game or two here? Yes, but I'm going to do it stubbornly until I like it. And then, so the family and helping my kids grow and find their own character and find their space between the words is really, I feel like that's a very, very important role for me. But then I have high ambitions for Exhale, and I do believe that we can build a very purpose-driven business that will totally revolutionize home services for the focused sort of demographic that we have. And I think if we do it, it'll be a great journey for my team, for me, because I love leading. I love sort of taking on the establishment a little bit, all right? And I think it'll be great for investors and my team, and we'll take care of a lot of really great people and good homes.
I just can't thank you enough for spending the time with me, because I think we've touched on so many things, but so many things that were like personally interesting and inspiring for me. And I gotta have you back, because I don't feel like we got to touch on all the things.
Happy to.
And so now that we've laid the base layer, we can come back and we can build some stuff on top.
Happy to. You've been a great host, and I love watching what you and Sue and the team are doing with your business.
Oh, thank you so much.
And so, yeah, more than happy to talk anytime.
Thank you so much.
And so we end another episode. Thank you so much for spending part of your day with us. I certainly appreciate all your support, so if you enjoyed the content, please like, subscribe, and share the podcast with your friends. The more you share, the more opportunities we will have to bring you great guests and their remarkable stories. And if you want to know more about the guests, get background information on previous episodes, or just learn a bit more about me and the show, visit us at uncommonlyremarkable.com. Feel free to leave me a comment or a suggestion, and if you want to be featured on the show, click the Contact Us button. Until next time, stay remarkable.